We'll do a review in the Likutei Sichos in Chelik Chav Zayin. It's volume 27. And this is the Sicha for Beis Nissan. As says in the star, it's the day of Histalkus, of the passing of the Rebbe Rashab Nishmos Eden on Beis Nissan in the year Tov Reish Pei. And the uh, biography in detail, the Rebbe references the Chanoich Lanar and the Sefer Toldus Admur Marashab. So in this Sikha, the Rebbe explains the uh, accomplishment and the novelty of the Rebbe Rashab as far as study of Chassidus. The Rebbe Rashab instituted that we should learn Chassidus the same way as we are used to learning Nigleh in the yeshiva with a chavrusa, with a debate, and to question and to really understand it. The Rebbe goes through the various different progression. In the beginning, people didn't learn, understand the inner part of Torah at all, and they came a little bit more and then a little more. But until the Rebbe Rashab, who brought it down in such a way that it is equal to understanding as we would learn the Nigleh the Torah. And the Rebbe explains this saying of the Rebbe Rashab before his passing. He says that while he's going in heaven, but the ksovim he's leaving for you. The Rebbe explains when he says leaving for you, meaning he's not giving it to you, he's leaving it. So everybody has to put in that effort because this is what the Rebbe Rashab's novelty is, to take Chassidus and work hard and grasp it, that it becomes totally your idea, that you can unite with it. We'll go step by step. And Beis Nissan, Aleph. Es is Yodua, was Kvet Kidushas Admor Marashab Nishmos Eden had gesagt. It's known, was said by the Rebbe Rashab. Shois achodos lifnei his talkusei. This was just several hours before his passing. So what he said is, Ich gei in Himmel, and the ksovim los ich eich. I'm going to heaven. My writings, I'm leaving you. That was something that the Rebbe Rashab said before, a few hours before he passed away. Now, the Rebbe says it's not two separate things, that the Rebbe is going to heaven, so he's not going to be there, and you're only going to have the writings, you're only going to have the ksovim. Fakir, just the opposite. That even though I'm going to the heaven, but you're still going to have me because you have my ksovim. The Rebbe explains. You have my writings, that's the way you're going to take me. Just like we find that when you learn Torah, you take the Nissan Torah, you take the Eberster. When you learn the Torah of the tzaddik, you actually take the tzaddik. We had already spoken several times. As yesh loymar der pirish in them, that we could say that what is the meaning of this? As durch die ksovim hot men im, that through these writings you have him. In other words, that's the way to take and hold on and have the Rebbe, is through his writings, through learning his writings. Und noch mehr, not only you have the Rebbe, you have the Rebbe at the level as he is in heaven. Und noch mehr, Mahotim, wer gefindt sich in him, you have him as he finds himself in the heavens. So it's not that you're only left with the ksovim, with the writings, but the ksovim is the way to hold on to the Rebbe, and even greater than the Rebbe was here, the way on his level of the Himmel, you have the ksovim. And this is based upon the fact, vorum tzadikim daimim lebeirem, the tzadikim are similar to their creator. Meaning, if we find things by Hashem, we apply this also to the tzaddikim. und der Riber. And therefore, what do we find by Hashem? Kshem wie der Eibishter hat Kaviochel sich hereingegeben in Torah, just as Hashem, so to speak, Kaviochel, put himself in Torah. When you learn Torah, you take Hashem. Vidar Pirush HaYodua, as the known interpretation in Maimer Chazal, in the saying of our sages. They say that Anoichi is abbreviation of Ano Nafshi Ksovis Yehovis. I myself I've written myself in the Torah that I've given you. Ksovis Yehovis, I've written and I've given to you. As der Eberster Hotzich the Eberster himself, Nafshi, Ano Nafshi, me myself, my nefesh. Eberster saying, Areingeschrieben und Areingegeben in Torah. He wrote himself down and he pushed himself in Torah. Was the far is durch Torah oisi atem loichem. That's why through Torah we say you take Hashem when you learn Torah, because in the Torah is Hashem. Hashem put himself in the Torah. So oisi atem loichem through Torah. Und al derech zeh bei tzaddikim. And similar to this is by tzaddikim who are compared to their creator. Just like Hashem invested himself, put himself into the Torah, the same thing is tzaddikim put themselves in their teachings. As they gibun zecharein in the inyonei Torah, they put themselves into the matters of Torah, was they haben gelernt, that they taught, that they studied. Ubefrat was they haben mechadr, especially that which they came up with the ideas on their far, and therefore, since they invested themselves in those parts of Torah, durch limud Torosum verbindt man sich mit sie allein. When you study their Torah, you tie yourself to them themselves. So, when the Rebbe says, I'm going to heaven, but I'm leaving you the ksovim, through the ksovim that he's leaving you, you're taking him, and as if in heaven, just like we find by the Eberster, that he put himself in the Torah, tzaddikim doim leboidim, they put themselves into their teaching, into the Torah. But yet the Rebbe says, if you try to compare the two languages, you see that there is a difference. By the Torah, we say, I gave myself into Torah. Nafshi Ksovi Yehovis, I've given myself. But when it comes to Chassidus, the Alter Rebbe writes about what he's leaving. He says, I'm leaving behind. It doesn't say he gave it to you. Leaving means that you have the responsibility to take that which is given. It's not yet given to you, but what he left behind, you can take. That's what the Rebbe is going to explain, how there is a difference between the idea, as we discussed, that the Eberster invested himself in Torah. There it says Yehovis given, and here we're saying that he's just leaving it here, but you have to take it yourself. Base. Vergleichendig dem Loschen from the Rebbe Nishmos Eden mit Loschen Chazal Hanal. When we try to compare the language of the Rebbe Nishmos Eden, he's saying, I'm leaving you, I'm going to heaven, I'm leaving you the ksovim, with the language of our sages of blessed memory of above. Bekesher Matan Torah, as it connects to Matan Torah, that the Eberster invested himself in the Torah. He said, Anoichi, Ano Nafshi Ksovis Yehovis. Zet men Ashinui in Chazal. You see a difference. In Chazal, in the sages, in their language of blessed memory, is the Loshen Yehovis. A Loshen Isina, given. Mashenkin, the Rebbe Nishmos Eden hat gesagt, the Rebbe said, the ksovim lo zichayich, I'm leaving you. Doesn't say I'm giving it to you, but he says I'm leaving it to you. So the Rebbe says, on a very simple level, you can say, why did he say I'm not giving it to you? Because this is the language that is used when a person is before his passing. A shchivmera uses the lashon of leaving, ani maniach, but the Rebbe says, no, there's a deeper meaning over here in the words of the Rebbe Rashab when he said, leaving it to you, but you're still going to have to do the work, which is what the Rebbe Rashab's Chiddush is. The Tam of them Yeshloimar. The reason why it says leaving you versus giving it to you by the words of the Rebbe Rashab. So we can say with Simval that das is behesem mit matzav demult that fitted the situation at the time, which was shoy sachodos lifnei istalkusei. This was several hours before his passing. So welchen es pas der loschen los over there before passing, it's fitting the language I'm leaving. Wie men gefindt in Haloche by Matnas Schimmer dem Loschen, der Loschen, as we find by a gift that is being given by one who's a Schimmer before passing. So the Loschen Animaniach, I leave. Leave meaning while he's leaving this, is leaving this behind. So that's the pashtus would be explaining why he said, I'm not giving us, I'm leaving it. But the Rebbe says everything is precise. The leaving it has a deeper meaning. But based on we had spoken many times, wegen dem Goydel hadiyuk im Pisgome Rabbeinu Nisienu, the great precise accuracy in the sayings of our Rebbes, our leaders, as der diuk is nit nor mitzad toichnon hakloli, that this specific language is not just because generally this is a general idea, he gave an expression, but every word in the expression is precise. Every word, every expression is precise. It's not just that we have to see what he said, what it means on a general way, but we have to take apart and understand each of the nuances, each of the words, how it was said. Is mistaber loimer. So the Rebbe said, therefore, it is logically to say, to conclude, as the diuk haloshen lozichach, this precise language, I'm leaving for you, is nit nor mitzad azaytiken inyan, that it's not just because of a side matter. The condition then, he was sick before he's passing away. He uses a lotion of a shchibra. No, nit nor mitzad azaytiken inyan. Not just because of a side matter. It's because the condition, the situation in which it was said, it was a few hours before his passing. And that's why he used the Lashon, los, nor das is negeya euch zum teuchen. But this is also important to the content of this whole subject, what we're trying to pass along here. It is specifically lozich eich in the content, in the idea that is being represented. Was the Rebbe Nishmos Eiden had gewollt herausbringen, what the Rebbe Nishmos Eiden, the Rebbe Rashab wanted to bring out in the Pisgom, in the expression, durch lernen seine ksovim, that when you study his writings, nehmt men im allein kinal, you take him alone. I said before, this, he wanted to express it by saying, I'm leaving you my ksovim, not that I'm giving you, but I'm leaving you. So it has meaning for the general theme, what he wants to say, and the language precisely is leaving it and not giving it. As the Rebbe will continue to explain, giving means you got it totally, but leaving you means you still got to get it, as the idea of Chassidus that the Rebbe Rashab wanted the Chassidim to have to work at it, develop it, so he just left it for them, but they have to do the rest of the work, as the Rebbe continues to explain in Ois Gimel and on. The difference between the two above languages, between Yehovis, which means Nisina, giving, unlosing, and to leave, is Nisina is madgish at the Zach kommt on zu mekabel mekoyach hanoisen. The word, when you say to give, that emphasizes that this item reaches the recipient from the power of the given. He is being given it. The recipient gets it because it's been given to him by the giver. There is no necessary, don't have to have any act on the part of the recipient. He doesn't have to do anything to get the gift. He's been given it. But when you say I leave it, meint as the Neusen git blois the Efshorius, that means that the giver only gives the possibility. As der Zweiter soll es können nehmen, that the other one should be able to take it. So he allows for him, but in order for it to actually happen, the other one must take it. Kidei aber das soll bepoil ankommen zum Zweiten in Rishus, but in order that in actuality it should reach to the other one in his domain, mus jener das allein nehmen. He must take it himself. Aidei pulosa. He must get involved. It must be his act. He has to take it. I left it for you, but you must take it. And the Rebbe said this is similarly that we find in the Pasuk, and we interpret it that it says in the beginning, it says, B'seirosei, B'seiris Hashem Cheftzoi. So we've called the Torah of Hashem. And then we say, B'seirosoi, his, the one, the learner, it becomes his Torah. There's two steps. Originally, when the Eibishter gives us the Torah, when we just learn it superficially, but when we take it and we take it apart and analyze it and grasp it, it becomes ours. That's the level, second level after the opportunity is to actually take it. The Tzvei Efanim Nisina, these two ways of giving and laws and to leave it, Gefitman Dugmosum and Limud Torah, we find similar to it in the study of Torah. The Chazal Zog, as sages blessed memory say, B'tchilo nikras ha-Torah al Shmoi shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the beginning, we start off, the Torah is called on the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Pasuk says, B'soiras havayeh cheftzei. The Pasuk starts off, one's desire is in Torah, but it says the Torah of Hashem. It's Hashem's Torah. You want Hashem's Torah. But Ulu B'soif, in the end, the Pasuk says, Nikras al Shmoi. The end, it's called because it says the Haloimed. The one Ubesoiroso Yege. In his Torah, the Torah of the learner, the studier, he will put in the effort. Meaning, in the beginning, when you learn Torah on a superficial level, it's the Eibishter's Torah. Then it becomes your Torah. When you study Torah just to cover ground, is the Torah Nikras al Shmei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is called on Hashem's name. It's Hashem's Torah. You're just skimming Hashem's Torah. You're reviewing Hashem's Torah. It relates to the giver of the Torah. B'shas overseas parander yehege, but when there is uveseirosa yehege, iyuna Torah, that is the deep insight and study of the Torah. Then it becomes seirosa is nikras al shmoi. Then it's called your name. That the divrei Torah werden seine. They're his. They're the persons. Since he had taken them through his effort. Torah delehi, that is his Torah. So the Rebbe says, this is the explanation when the Rebbe says, laws, I'm leaving it to you, to imply that you need to actually take it. It's not been fully given to you, left it for you, but you got to work it up. So based on this, we can explain them diuk haloshim from Rebbe Nishmosein, the precise language of the Rebbe Nishmosein, of the Rebbe Rashab. The ksovim los ich eich, I leave it to you. Weil das ist behesem mitten chidush shaloi. This fits the novelty of the Rebbe Rashab in Oifun Gilu Toiras HaChassidus, in how, in the way he revealed the teaching of Chassidus. Was erot Oivgiton, the Rebbe Rashab, the Rebbe Nishmoseiden, he accomplished as the Hasoge in Pnimis HaTorah, that the grasp of the inner part of Torah soll kennen sein in Ganzen, it should be able to be entirely mitzat koyach, sichlei da hamakabel v'haloimed, it should be able to receive it from the power of the intellect of the recipient of the study. That was the Rebbe Rashab's novelty. That is what he wanted to reveal in Chassidus, that you should be able to fully capture it with your koyach. Should be sorosoi. Was nehmt die inyonim hanilmodim kidlekamed, and you take that which is studied. So it's left for you, but you have to invest and you have to go ahead and take that. And the Rebbe now, after explaining basically that the laws means I'm leaving, meaning, but it requires your effort to be yours, and this is what the Rebbe Rashab accomplished. The Rebbe is going to go through historically to show us how this was accomplished by the Rebbe Rashab's creating a yeshiva in which they learn Chassidus, and in which Chassidus is learned with a study partner, with a group. Everybody is studying the same thing. We can discuss it together to really bring it down in a level as we are used to studying the revealed part of Torah. Dalet. Von den Chidushim Ikrin, von dem Rebbe Nishmoseiden, Yesh Loimar, from the main novelties of the Rebbe Nishmoseiden, we can say, as is given the Hisyazus from Yeshivas Tomchei Tmimim. That was the establishment of the yeshiva of Tomchei Tmimim. Was der Oiftu von der yeshiva is, what is the novelty of this yeshiva? So a lot of yeshivas. What's the novelty of the yeshiva that the Rebbe Rashab established? Is as is eingestellt geworden in Seder Limud HaYeshiva, that it was set up as part of the order of studying the yeshiva, a Seder for Limud Chassidus, an order of studying Chassidus. That was the Rebbe Rashab's, one of his main novelties and that he established. Was is der Chidush? Was is der Chidush von Limud HaChassidus in der Mizgeres von a yeshiva? What's the novelty? What is it so different? What is it so special from learning Chassidus within the framework of a yeshiva? We're saying he established that. And the Rebbe explains what a yeshiva is. Yeshiva is where everybody learns the same subject and you give and take, and you provide the analysis and the support from different minds. The inyan for a yeshiva is, the idea of a yeshiva is limud ha-Torah ba'ofen shel dibuk chaverim, to learn, to study the Torah in a style of connecting with partners, with chaverim, with other partners and learning. Pilpul ha-talmidim, the give and takes and the insights of the students in the discussion of the material. Was durch dem der shakel v'tariya, because through when you give and take is memelaben umevarer the sugya. That's the way you whiten, you figure out, and you sort out to understand the subject, the discussion, this idea, this sugya. Was man lernt, busy kommt to the extent that it becomes clear all details in this discussion, in the material that you are studying. That's what a yeshiva is. And the Rebbe Rashab wanted this to take place also by Chassidus. Weil derach so, der Rebbe Nishmos Eden eingeführt, and similar to this, the Rebbe Nishmos Eden, he established Benegeya to Limud Torah and Chassidus as it relates to the study of the teaching of Chassidus. As Chassidus soll gelernt werden auf a yeshivischen Öfen, that Chassidus should be studied on a yeshiva style. Wie hat gesagt, as he said, as will as der Öfen Limud Chassidus, that he wanted, he wishes, and that he wants, that the way you study Chassidus soll sein kilimud hasugis begalish v'toyra, just like learning the topics in the revealed part of Torah. That's the way you should learn Chassidus. Biz as haChassidus yovinu k'moshe mevinim in Nigleh. To the extent, quoting the Rebbe Rashab, they should understand Chassidus just like they understand a matter in the revealed part. Und der Vater hat eingestellt, and that's why he established, he set up the Seder for Limud HaChassidus, the order of learning Chassidus in the yeshiva. So he set it up, Amizolernen, Agudis, groups, Yeder Agud, each of the groups, so Lernen, themselben Inyan, should all study the same subject, the same sugya, same area, the same topic in Chassidus, Birhdei, so that people can later on discuss chulu in their minyan in this matter. Bis as the inyan vet klor werden, to the extent that this matter will become clear by the learned, by those who study the whole prot of all details, because they will involve the group studies and the discussions and the give and take, and this will clarify until it will be fully comprehensible in all details to those who study. Al derech dem seder alimut from Galia the Torah, similar to the order of study of the revealed part of Torah. Was azah oifun from limut pnimis Torah, such a style of learning the inner part of Torah, stellt mit sich vor a chidush ikri. This is a main novel idea when you measure it legabi dizmanim shalifnei, relative to the times beforehand. To learn Chassidus in a yeshiva style learning is a total novelty. It's a main new concept, which is different than anything that was done before of learning Chassidus. And the Rebbe will continue to explain, yes, there were build-ups. There was the time from the beginning and from then the Arizal and the Alter Rebbe, and then we have the novelty of the Rebbe Rashab, how the level of yeshivish learning and to understand Chassidus like an Indian in Nigleh. Hey, as the Rebbe explains, in früher dike Zmanim, in previous times, is given a chiluk ikri zwischen limud Nigleh de Torah and limud pnimis Torah. There was a main distinction between the way we studied the revealed part of Torah and the way we studied the inner part of Torah. And the Rebbe explains, the revealed part of the Torah is a logical component to it. So while it's God's wisdom, but it's been descended to the people. Nigleh the Torah Nigleh the Torah is gegeben geworden in an Eufen. Nigleh Torah was given in a way as der Seichel and Nushi, that the human intellect von a Nivra, from a created being, soll kennen teifer sein des Svorish v'Seichel HaTorah, should be able to grasp the ideas and the logic of Torah. That's Nigleh the Torah. Now, the Afalpi, although was Torah is Chochmoseh shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Torah is the wisdom of Hashem, the less machshava tfisa bei, that no thought can grasp Hashem. So still, hat aber der Eberster Rob genidert Chochmoseh Yisbarach, Hashem brought down, he lowered his blessed wisdom, ba'ofen, in a way, as oich seichel ha'anushi, that also the human intellect, zolas kenan bagreifen, should be able to grasp it. Bis ba'ofen von nikras al shmoi, to such an extent, it's even called on your name. It's your Torah. Ver Torah soy to so much becomes his that it's called his Torah, Torah Deleu. It's his Torah. That means that the Torah of Nigleh can become so much yours. You have such a grasp of it, and you have so much understanding that it's yours. Mashenki primis ha-Torah, as opposed to the inner part of Torah, blight begolui Torah savaya. Openly, it's remains the Torah of Hashem. And there was a difference, a progression, how it went. In Gorfrir, dike Deures, in very earlier generations, haben Reuv bnei Yisrael genommen die Inyonim et Amunah. Most of the people didn't even study or grasp the inner part of Torah. They accepted it with belief, with Amunah. She's given hecher von Seichel Nivra. It was above the intellect of the created being, as a result in them that he should be able to grasp hold of it. And the Rebbe says we can say, Azeu echod mipirushim. This is one of the meanings, the interpretation of the shame Kabbalah. We call it Kabbalah, accepting. Or it comes as a accepting, as a tradition. The Kabbalah ish mipish. We received it one from the other, because it is not something that is ours. It's not Torah because it's Torah Hashem. Nigleh, Pnimis HaTorah, is not like Nigleh. Nigleh you get becomes yours. This is, in the beginning, it was totally with the Munah. Later on, Afile in the Shpete Dikedoros, but also even in the later generation, noch an Arizal, after the Arizal. By the Arizal, we say people were supposed to become nourished, Yisparnisim, from Chassidus, from inner part of Torah. Then the Inyonim from Pnimius HaTorah, when aspects of the inner part of Torah, seine nisparish geworden, they became articulated in an Eufen, to such an extent, bis soll kennen sein Yisparnisim. It could be they should be nourished by it. They should be sustained. So, in other words, it's no longer emunah. It's not above. You can actually treat you. It nurtures you. Mizo verstehen, you can understand. Nicht nur beöfen von Girsa Ba'alma, not just to say the words, just superficially, but to understand Yisparnisun. Seinen sie aber nicht herabgetragen worden bis zum Seichel Anushi. They have not been lowered, brought down all the ways to the human intellect, bis as soll sie kennen Teufel sein, to the extent he should be able to grasp it. No, not like Nigleh. Chassidus remains Torah Hashem. It never really came down. Das ist verblieben Seichel Aliki, this remained godly intellect. Was can benommen werden nur mit dem Seichel von Nefesh Alikis, which can only be taken in with the intellect of the godly soul. Welcher is a göttlicher Seichel? The godly soul can take, this is a godly intellect, von a göttlicher Neshama, from a godly soul, und kann tiefer sein Ruchnis de Kinyonim, and is able to capture, to grasp spiritual matters that are explained in the inner part of Torah. So it's only the spirituality of the neshama and the godly soul that have the ability to capture ideas that are godly, and they're not really descended to the person, to the human level. The Rebbe adds in the brackets, so Takya, while Arizal brought it out so that it can be graspable, Yusparnison, but it wasn't across the board. It wasn't everybody, because not everybody's neshama was there to be able to grasp it. V'yeshleimer as the far, that for that reason is nit yederot gekent masig sein dinyonim. Not everybody was able to grasp these ideas. Nor dir welchem gehat a hechere neshama. Only those who had a higher soul. Besides having a higher soul, and they refine themselves. Unterzu, and in addition to having a higher soul, noch sich mezache gewenke de boy, they refine themselves as necessary. Oiveren akelitzu is galus b'haneshama, to become a vessel for the revelation in the soul. Worked they with all of these conditions, that they had a high soul and they refined themselves so that the neshama can get it, and they were able to grasp it. But those who are not refined and they don't have a high soul, would not have, were not able to have a grasp in inner of Torah. This is even after the result. But this is eine for the Hasboris in Divrei HaZoyar. This is one of the explanation of the words of the Zoyar. As in Pnimis HaTorah, it says, "Is leis tamon loy kushya v'chulu." In Torah, there's no questions. Nitvi in Nigleh the Torah. In the revealed part of Torah, there's questions, there's answer, there's debate. But in Zoyar, it says that in the inner part of Torah, there's no questions. Why is there no questions? Because a question is a block. It's a challenge. But in the godliness, there's no challenge over there. Akasha is the Chaninian from Helen Behester. Akasha is a block, obscures. Afarstel of an emes from Torah. It blocks the truth of Torah. You have a challenge, you have a question. Is the river, and therefore, Nigleh the Torah, in the revealed part of Torah, which came down in such a way, that the human intellect should be able to capture it, is do in ir kashis. That's why there is questions, because there are challenges. The world in the intellect, which comes down into the human, has challenges, blocks on the godly, on the idea. Das heißt, the kashi is ein nachelik from Torah gufa. These questions are a part of Torah himself. Kimadubar come upon him, as spoken many times. Kimadubar come upon him. The raya ledavar, proof that the question is also a part of Torah. If a person will just learn a question of Torah, he's still going to make the brachas HaTorah. I feel if somebody wants to just study a question in Torah, he has to make a blessing beforehand, the brachas HaTorah. Not a lot to learn, but it means that learning the question is Torah. It's not like the question comes from somewhere else. So, how come there is questions in Nigleh? Weil in Seichel Anushi kann sich nicht gleich ablegen der Seichel HaTorah, because in the human intellect, because it has to be humanly understood, in the human intellect, you cannot have immediately the Seichel HaTorah should make sense, Chochmasa Yizbarach, which is Hashem's wisdom. It's a gap, so it takes that part, a question, till you can get to the answer. First, the human intellect has question. Bis der loimed edel to sein seichel, till the one who's studying, refines his intellect, und is oimed ala mitzvah Torah, and then he can understand the truth of Torah. As opposed to Pnimis HaTorah, was is nicht darauf getragen geworden in Seichel Anushi, that has not been brought down into human intellect. Nor blois fahren Seichel von Nefesh Elikis is just for the godly Seichel. Over there, the Zohar says there's no questions because there's no blocks. It doesn't have to come down to the human intellect. Nor blois fahren Seichel Nefesh Elikis. Was by Nefesh Elikis legt, was by Nefesh Elikis lacht Torah. Over there, Torah shines. There's no questions over there. There's no blocks because it's not brought down to the nefesh, to the human intellect, to the seichel anushi. It's a godly, it's a neshamadik understanding. This is even with the revelation of the Arizal. And the Rebbe goes weiter. even after the revelation of the Alter Rebbe in Chassidus, still it remained higher. It still remained a godly seichel, unlike the novelty that the Rebbe Rashab brought it down in the yeshivische style like Nigleh the Torah. Noch mehr. Both. Es ist Yeduas der Öftu von alten Rebben beteures Chassidus Chabad. It is known that what was the novelty of the Alter Rebbe in the teaching of Chassidus Chabad, ubefrat noch sein Geula B'Yutes Kislev, especially after the Alter Rebbe went out of prison, he was the redemption on the 19th of Kislev, especially after that. What was the novelty of the Alter Rebbe? Is bestanden in them, it consisted in the fact was Rot Malbish given the Nyonim from Pnimis HaTorah, that he dressed up the ideas of the inner part of Torah in Seichel, Chabad, that became Chabad, Chochmah bin Adas. Be'oifen, he brought it down in such a way, as afil and nit kein mezuchochim, even those who are not refined, which was a requirement by the Arizal to Yisparnus, you needed to be a mezuchach, but here the Alter Rebbe accomplished you're not refined, which is called chutza, yafutzu menesecha chutza. It's a chutza, not a refined. Zol as kenen verstehen mit their sechel anushi, they should be able to understand it with their human intellect. So here already it almost seems that the Alter Rebbe accomplished that. So what is the Rebbe Rashab? Aber Avopike, still, is das noch nicht gewesen in demselben Eifem Vasogas Nigleh the Torah. It was not the same way as you grasp the revealed part of Torah. Seichel and Nushi mitzad atzmei hot nit gekend de Griechen a Hasoga Gemura in Pnimis HaTorah. The human intellect on its own could not reach a complete grasp in Pnimis HaTorah. Siznor, so what happened is, it's only as b'shas mehoti masbir given an inyan from Pnimis HaTorah, that when you explained to him a idea of the Pnimis HaTorah, hat sich das bei ihm gekannt ablegen, then it could make sense to him. So you could explain to them an idea of Pnimis HaTorah. On your own, you could not, but when you present something, they can understand it. Ubedugma, the Rebbe gives an example in the brackets here. V'arav was lernt mit a Talmid a tifun seichel. A rabbi, a teacher who's teaching a student a very deep idea, a deep seichel, a deep intellectual idea, was is nicht begeder as the Talmud mitzad atzmei, so es kennen masig sein. It's not in the possibilities of a student on his own to be able to grasp it. If the teacher is not going to explain to him, the student itself can't grasp it. Vasafilu, the teacher has to explain to him, but what happens? Vasafilu noch dem vidarav is thus in masvir, even after the teacher explains it to him, unes legt sich bei him, and it makes sense to him. Can der Talmud nicht gefinnen eigene Eishes, but he cannot find his own words, wie zu masvir sein dem sechel, how to articulate, how to explain this idea to somebody else, or he can't give it back. He doesn't have. He understood it the way the teacher taught it, and it made sense to him, but not enough to become his own for him to go ahead and change and bring it out in his own words. And this is where the Rebbe Rashab comes in. Und das ist the Chiddush for Rebbe Nishmosein. This is the Chiddush of the Rebbe Nishmosein. Was hat darauf getrogen, die Inyonim von Pnimis HaTorah. He brought down the ideas of the inner part of Torah, be'oifen in such a way as the Hasoge in Zay, that grasping damsel can sein in the selben Oifen, should be able to be on the same way, the Hasogas Nigleh the Torah, as you understand the revealed part of Torah. Punkt when Nigleh the Torah is Goli, just as the revealed part of Torah is revealed. It's revealed for the human intellect in such a way as horvet in them, that he works hard just like on a physical idea, the person is working on a Torah idea with the effort, with the same as he would be working about a physical idea. In demselben Eifun, and the Rebbe Rashab wanted in the same style, so Seichel Nushi sich misyageya sein in Pnimius HaTorah. The human intellect should put the effort in the inner part of Torah on a similar level to Harvend understand it, the Pnimius HaTorah. What would be the example here in the brackets? Bedug mevarav was trokta rob dem seichel amuk zum Talmud beoifen, just similar to a teacher that brings down this deep seichel to the student, but oifen in such a way as the Talmud can denoch misyageya sein bozeh b'sichlehu. He brought it down to such a level that the student can later on put in effort with his own intellect, to find the own word, letters, and explanation, how to express, how to bring out this idea. That's the extent of the seichel of Chassidus that the Rebbe Rashab brought down. So it's not just listening and understanding what somebody else says that it makes sense, but it's something that you can put in effort. In the Mamor Chassidus, as we see it in the Mamor Chassidus of the Rebbe Rashab, Rebbe Shmoseiden, as the Zelgbe Yonim Velchaveren is by in the Mamorim from the Nisiya Chabad Shalofonov, that the same ideas which are explained in the Maimorim of the leaders of Chabad that preceded the Rebbe Shmoseiden, Kumen in Zayin Maimorim mit Arichas Dike Hezbeinu Chulu. They appear in the Maimorim of the Rebbe Rashab in a long explanation. Besides, same ideas brought out in a lengthy way. And on top of that, in addition to that, the Hartzos v'Hasboros Hadvoim, the presentation and the explanation of the matters is in a signin, is in a style, v'seichel anushi kendos masbir zayin, that the human intellect can explain this. You understand it. This makes sense humanly in the intellect. Mitzayne oisiyos, with the letters of the human intellect, begreifen and to grasp it. Al derech v'es nemt ad var seichel v'nigleh, the Torah, similar to the way it takes a logical idea of the revealed part of Torah. Und der Pfarr hat der Rebbe Nishmoseid medai given b'lashoinei. That's why the Rebbe Nishmoseid was specific with his language. The ksovim loz ich eich. I'm leaving it for you. Weil das ist von die Auftun von seine ksovim. This is the novelty of his writings, is aseichel anushi shalodom ken ze nemen, that the human intellect of the person is able to take them. I'm leaving it for you to take them. It becomes the Torah, becomes on his name. So while Chassidus originally was Torah Hashem, it went through all these involvement, but the Rebbe Rashab brought it into the level of working at it like in Nigleh Torah, so that your human seichel grasps it full. Zayin. What is from this we get the lesson? There's some that study the inner part of Torah. But they're afraid to ask a question when they don't understand what they were studying here. Because how do you question, ask a challenge on something which is the inner part of Torah, to accept it? Says there's no question, as the Zohar said in Chassidus, in Pnimis HaTorah. Ayer versteht nicht, so but he doesn't understand. So what does he do? Is genug was gelebt der Munah Shlema is sufficient. The person thinks that he believes with complete faith. As alt versteht in Pnimis HaTorah is emes, whatever it says in the inner part of Torah is true. No, that's not. So what's the lesson teaching us? If them is the answer, that's what the answer is. As the Rebbe Nishmoseid not Pesach given as Haderech, the Rebbe Nishmoseid open up the path. As Divrei Chassidus on kennen banumen werden, the word of Chassidus should be able to be captured taken through the human intellect. In the Meifim Nigleh Torah, the same style, same way as the revealed part of Torah. Das heißt, which means a limud be'iyon, a limud with intensity, und in an Eifun fun Shakle Vetari, in a way of questions and answer, give and take, hulu, und as me versteht nit an Inyan, and when there's something you don't understand, is lo yabai shalom. If you're a person, as the Mishnah says, if you're ashamed, you're not going to learn. Don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid to ask. Madar frag nechul, you have to ask. Don't think that you have to believe in Muslim. You have to ask. Avade. This does not mean that if you don't understand it, then it's not, God forbid, accurate. Of course. Avade. Afile mem versteht nit an in Torah. When you don't understand something in Torah, any part of Torah, the Torah, also the revealed part of Torah. Darf muss sein nasa koin lo nishma. We need to know. We accept before we listen. We know that it's true. As tornit zayin kin sofik, not allowed to be a doubt. Chas v'sholom b'mitzvah dover, God forbid, in the truth of the matter. Aber li'idoch, but on the other hand, ken men nit yoytze zayin havonas ha-Torah mit kabbalas ol. You cannot fulfill the obligation to understand Torah with accepting the yoke. Verstehen an inyan leburia meant to understand something fully, as I versteht besichle hu, that you understand with your intellect, v'azay the kasha gated up, how the question is removed. If you have a question, what does it mean that you studied with your intellect? Means that you understand in your seichel that there is no longer a question. And that's also in Pnimis HaTorah, that you understand that there's no question. No emuna over here. Pasha to understand. This is the way we need to study Pnimis HaTorah. Und durch Limud Pnimis HaTorah, shenisgalsu b'deiros halolu, and by studying Pnimis HaTorah, which in our generations has been revealed in Torah's Chassidus Chabad, in the teachings of Chabad Chassidus, in an oifum von Avona v'asoga shlema, in a way of fully grasping al derech v'asoga for Nigleh the Torah, similar to the grasping of the revealed part of Torah. Vertos ha'achona kroiva, this becomes a very close preparation to oisa azman, to the time when you Yisrael chachamim gedolim, the Yidden will be great sages. The Yodim dvarim astumim, they'll know hidden things. And they will know the mind of their creator according to the power of a human being. And everybody will learn. In the world, the earth will be filled with knowledge of Hashem like water covers the sea. And this is preparing for that time when the real revelation, in the time of Mashiach, when this hidden matters, the Dvar Mastumim, will be revealed. This is Sichos Chof Mar Cheshvan Tovshin Mem Vav.